Welcome to Flesh and Pod, a Flesh and Blood podcast, breaking down weekly news and notes from the tournament scene, community drama, game strategy, and more. And now, here are your hosts, Darick and Logan.
Choo choo.
Oh, Jesus, of course you're gonna. Okay, fine. Hello and welcome.
Yeah, you said you were going to start this train up, so I
did. That's on me.
Following your lead.
I take full responsibility. But hello and welcome to episode 116 in a row of Flesh and Pod. My name's Logan. I am still your host for some odd reason, and with me for the last year plus is Darick Oswald.
It really doesn't feel like it's been over a year for me.
But it has. It
has, because it's been since, the very early 50s that I made the transition. And I'm not that bad at math, but it doesn't feel like it. So
I think this is week 60. I think this is week like 60 or 62 for you. It's somewhere in that general vicinity. Yeah.
It's just that's me giving you your flowers. You have not made it so miserable that it has felt like a year.
I appreciate that. That is very kind of you. And I don't know, like every time that I say the number, it doesn't feel like the number. So I take that for what you
also
will.
That's because this is America and the only thing we care about is numbers going up.
That's fair.
The number now doesn't matter. Does it go up? Right.
Just we in dollars and death tolls and things like that. Things that Americans really care about. And what's the insurance premiums and cost of healthcare and everything that goes up.
Episodes in a row of Flesh and Pod. That's as American as apple pie.
And school shootings.
Yeah.
So how have we not been canceled? Fuck me. Okay.
Because we're not the ones doing the school shootings. Listen, that's one of those things that is uniquely American because it's something that, unlike many, many other things, we've failed to export. That's how you know it's truly ours.
That's just actual facts. Any rate, so I know for a fact that Darick played Flesh and Blood this past week.
I did, yeah. Well,
and we're going to talk about it.
I was present when Flesh and Blood was being played. I don't know if I played it. Yeah, so this week I actually played Flesh and Blood twice. In fact, two drafts. So I did a draft at my Armory. It was my first shot at Heavy Hitters Draft, and I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. Ended up going 2-1. Lost a nail biter to Ben. What I would describe as far as the experience is that we were both incredibly low on health, and I lost the game after I had a test of strength good 4 block that I was trying to block with, and then he played an intimidate attack. He was KO. I was on Olympia. He hits it. Next turn, he plays another intimidate. He hits it. So I'm struggling. I don't get to block with one until I literally draw the other one I drafted, and he intimidates one, and I block with the other one. And so and then there's another turn where I could go really, really wide, but I hit the wrong. So my blue gets hit with my random discard sort of thing. No, it wasn't that. There was something else. Because I was on Olympia, there was something else that triggered, but I counted my pitch stack wrong. That's what it was. So because I couldn't block because of the intimidate and we were hitting second cycle, I thought I was going to hit a blue. And I didn't. Sorry, all my draft games are blurring together. But basically, my fun story about this is yes, I lost. But one, Ben played it incredibly well, so it's not a knock on him by any stretch. It's more so that I felt like the game was incredibly close despite all of those things going not my way. But also, if they had went my way, there was also still no guarantee that I win that either, right? It was just that close. And I think that when you're playing heavy hitters well, that's the good vibe, the good experience. So at my RTN, luck did not go my way, and I made a bunch of mistakes. And so I did not qualify this time around, but I still had a good experience. So first pod, right? I sit down. The person to the right of me opens a legendary. The person across from me opens the cold foil in the box, and the person to the left of me opens a Marvel KO.
This the Charmer experience.
The Charmer experience,
small
literally.
And
then like I was talking to Brad, who I ended up playing Brad round one, and we were joking because literally any event that I'm at where Brad, who's another local, plays, we always play each other in the first like 1 to 2 rounds. It's just like clockwork. Like it has to happen. So we were kind of joking about that. And then I was thinking about it. And I was like, at the Uprising pre-release, Brad sat across from me and he opened a Marvel Dragon. And then I started running through my head and I'm like, yeah, I can't go to an event and not have somebody next to me open stuff. I need to charge
to greatness.
Yeah. I need to charge people to be next to me.
Yeah, if you want to sit here, that's going to be a 10 spot. Trust me, it's worth it.
Yeah. So first draft goes actually really well. I properly identified I was supposed to be in Brute. I was actually trying to draft for Reinar instead of KO. And I hit 17 natural 6s, but I didn't have enough natural discard triggers. Like I would have relied on some rough effects. So I ended up playing KO. I win the first one against Brad. I win the second one, and then I get into the third game and I lose it, but I lose it to what was like the only Guardian at the table, and he's on Victor, and he's when I say the only Guardian at the table, he like got past Victor's helm in pack 3. Drafted Golden Sun, and that one, so I had 32 cards and he had 36. Okay. And I was still fatiguing him because of the quality of my draft. But we get down to the end where we were both looking at cards in deck, and I had 9 cards counting my pitch to his 8, right? Mm-hmm. So we're like doing the math, and the problem is in his Victor draft, he also picked up a Golden Sun. And I was trying to figure out how to force him to block with it, and I just couldn't. So when he hit third cycle, we were both at 1, and he was able to overpower it, and I couldn't stop it. So I start 2-1. That was, again, just beautiful game. Close. Very close. Was a ton of fun. So I start 2-1. And then 1, I had not like really eaten. That was my mistake. Did not plan ahead. I was also starting to like kind of fade. By the end of round 1, after the second pod starts, I was like yawning almost uncontrollably. So my first round opponent after we do the second draft is Nathan, who's a local who also is just a phenomenal Flesh and Blood player. You see him do well at like Worlds and a bunch of other places, right? So like I already have a bad matchup, but the problem was I was also tired, and I'm just going to say it. I really fucked up my second draft. Now, it's my fault, and I take full credit for it, but I put myself in a bad position where, because of the pool I ended up with, I had to take chances on go wide turns in order to push enough damage because I didn't have it in my deck. And the reason I didn't have it in my deck is because when I opened pack 1, I had a Raisin Army, and I also had a red Clash of Agility. And I really like Clash of Agility because it does everything that both Brute and Warrior wants to do. No, that one's the 2 for 6. But
that Clash of Agility. Yep.
But
on block Clash.
On block Clash, you get the Agility token and it blocks for 3, right? I'm a big fan of that card in general in this set, but I also really like it when I'm picking early because it allows me to stay open, right?
A little, but yeah.
A little, anyway. More so than straight taking Raisin Army, which is I'm locked in down to the hero, right?
Right.
So here's the problem. I take the Clash of Agility and I pass to my left. Now, what I was not thinking through at the time is the person to my right was the Victor that I played in the first pod, who 3-0'd. Now, I was expecting him to not want to play Guardian, but I also should have known that showed that he's not unwilling to. And so naturally, when he figured out that like he was 1 of 2 at the table, he started gobbling a bunch of stuff up. So I have him on my right, taking Guardian. But when I started passing packs to the left, and I'm trying to stay open, the people to the left of me saw Raisin Army go and saw other warrior specific cards go because I was taking the dual class cards. And so they went warrior. So then I get to about halfway through the first pack and I'm realizing like, okay, yes, the person immediately right of me is on Guardian, but the other two after that are brute because like no brute stuff is making it down. So I want to start taking warrior stuff and I do, but then the problem is the psychology of they saw Raisin Army go left. Literally the three people, not one, not two, all three left of me were on warrior. So then when we go to pack 2, no warrior stuff is coming this way. So I get forced into brute and I get some okay stuff pack 2. But then when we go to pack 3 and it has to go through the other ones, I was in hand-me-down spot. Yep. So I had way too many yellows. I was not consistent. And so ultimately it's my fault. I don't think taking Raisin Army is correct in that first pick.
No.
But the problem is that psychologically it sent the wrong message. And then I was like in a weird pickle. So yeah, it my fault. I fucked up the draft. I was tired and I definitely did not play well in the back half. So started the day okay. And overall, I really like the set. I think that get a few more drafts under my belt. There's one more draft RTN here. I think I can do relatively well when I show up for that one. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. The other, like the real kick in the balls as well was pack 3. So when it was going back the other way, had I just hard went into Kasai, somebody passed me a Kasai helm.
Oh.
Like in pack 3, and I'm just like, man, if I just like lead off with the Raisin Army and then blah blah blah, but
you're in a good spot then.
Hindsight 2020 and all that. So I had a lot of fun. Did not perform as well as I would have liked at the RTN, but overall, when I'm coherent, I feel good about what I'm doing in the set, and navigating the turns also feels fine to me. There's a lot more nuance than I originally anticipated when I was thinking about the matchups. For example, I was not immediately understanding how good Warrior was into the Guardians.
Yep. Attack reactions don't give a shit about overpower.
Correct. That was the big thing, because when you're looking at the cards in the set that can block, it's like, yeah, obviously there's the block cards, but all of those attack reaction cards, especially the ones that are 3 blocks, are huge in that matchup.
Yeah, Fatal Engagement can have blank text in that matchup. Yeah. It just literally can just be attack reaction block 3, and it's immediately playable.
Yep. So just a lot of stuff. Again, like I didn't get the opportunity to play a ton prior to this week, but now that I'm a couple of pods in, I feel better. I hope to get 1 or 2 more practices in at upcoming armories, and then, like I said, we have one more in Michigan or whatever this season that I'm going to try to hit. But the downside is now, because I didn't qualify in the first one, I have to make the really difficult decision of, do I actually try to qualify playing CC, or do I still play Arachne the way I wanted to? Because I have picked up my playset of Coercive Tendencies, so I have like my Arachne list ready to go.
You should play what you want. I mean, honestly, I did. Felt great, but it just so happens I think that what I want to play is also probably the best deck right now. But that's besides the point.
That's a big difference between me and like, look, I don't think Arachne's in a terrible spot. I think my biggest issue is that he's in a not so great spot in my local meta.
Sure.
I think if it was a larger event, I would actually feel better. But locally here, we've got a fair number of like good Guardian players. And then the other players from at least all like the Whispers and whatever, who knows, but just from armories and what people have been preparing with or whatever, I expect a lot of KO and Dorinthia. Yep. And
that's painful.
Yeah, the KO matchup can be rough because you don't have the good ways to disrupt their big turns. Dorinthia, my build of Arachne does relatively okay because there's a lot of stuff that I run that can block without triggering reprise. So I feel
how good is it into Decimator?
Well, so The good news is, I'm hoping that it is all these new players that are picking up Dorinthia, and they won't know. There's a woman who is very good on Dory who plays locally, and she would know to play Decimator in that matchup. Outside of her, I don't know if people would know to do that or not.
Fair enough. Yeah. So on the weekend for me, starting off during the week, I've had a Blitz Armory, played Briar, easy 3-0, sure. Deck is unfair still in Blitz. Like, we had a turn where I was closing out a Victor, and he had to block a give and take with 2 cards. And so I stacked 2 Enlightened Strikes on the top of my deck with a Snapdragons up and a Channel Mount Heroic in play. Here's 20. GG. And it was Dom too, so it was even kind of funny. The complaints department in our Discord. But and then drafted on Friday just because like I had a draft RTN on Saturday, wanted to make sure I got some reps in. Went 2-1 on a good Betsy deck. Played Warrior round 1. And again, attack reactions. I overpowered for 13 and they just clean blocked it. Like, yeah. Okay. So it felt okay going into the draft RTN. Went into the draft RTN and so get to pack 1. I take a generic out of pack 1. There wasn't a lot in the pack in general that would push in any direction. So I took the generic to signal that I tried to take something that would just signal that it was open, or that I was open through that pick. But I sent Guardian 3 or Guardian, like a Concuss and something else, right? Like at a blue thunk, right? Sending good Guardian cards, but the other 2 classes were not good in the pack. And then I get the pack for my right, and there's a Brute Guardian 3 for 7. And so I'm like, okay, that seems like a thing. And then I look, and I look at the class cards, because it's 2-2-1 in the common slots for the class cards, right? Mm-hmm. And there are still 2 Brute cards, and there's 1 Guardian card, 1 Warrior card, not in Brute at that point. Like, easy peasy, you're not in Brute. You're either in Guardian or you're in Warrior. Kind of took another look at it, and I surmised, okay, you're in Warrior. So my right is Warrior. So I pass through, I take a 3 for 7 and pass another Guardian blue block 3 that's well worth playing to my left. And then I start shipping good Guardian to my left. Like if there is a 2 3 for 7s in the pack, and 1 is Warrior Brute and 1 is Guardian Brute, I take the Warrior Brute, right? And just ship the Guardian left. I'm like, I'm going to put the guy to my left in Guardian, so that easy peasy coming back right. Coming back right, I am completely cut off from Brute. In pack 2 in Brute, I wound up with 5 playables. Like, it was that bad. And then pack 3 going the other direction, I get enough stuff, but I'm still 2 crack bobble dot deck, right? Mm-hmm. And very bad. We can't be there.
No.
And I'm kind of just like, okay, draft gets done. And I'm just like, what the fuck happened? Like, trying to think to myself. And the guy to my left turns to me and says, yeah, I fucking killed us both. And I'm like, yep. He's like, if I drafted my seat, we meet in the finals. I fucked us. And I'm like, yep. Well, it turns out what had happened was, because I'd sent because the equipment slots, because since there's so much equipment, you don't have to like super value it in this set versus other sets. And so I shipped a Flat Trackers left and didn't even think anything of it. I wound up with 1 anyway, right?
Right.
Like, later down the road. But the person to my left's left saw the Flat Trackers came through and thought it was a clear Brute signal and shifted to Brute by then. So now the 2 players to my left are both Brute. And then 2 left of them is the other Brute. So 4 Brutes.
The equipment thing is so far, I think, pretty polarizing, because I have the same mindset that you do, which is I don't overvalue, with the exception of the helms, right? But I would argue that 1, they're just that good, and 2, they're in the rare slot. So those make sense. But otherwise, I don't tend to overvalue them.
Right.
For especially early picks. And my locals are doing the same thing that what you're describing. So like the armory that I was at, Thorin to the left of me, like when we got done, I looked down, I was like, man, the only thing I didn't end up with was gloves. And he's like, yeah, I have 4 sets of gloves. Right? Yeah. Like, and then even still, both of the draft pods I was in at the RTN, like people were like, dude, I just never saw a flat trackers. And then one person would be like, yeah, I like have all 3 or whatever, because they just didn't want to let them go. I feel like the other sets have ruined people. Us? Yeah, ruined some people's like perspective, because there's a lot of playable equipment. One of the things that I did end up learning was some of the adversity equipment I was not really, I think, valuing high enough.
Face adversity is incredible.
So face adversity is incredible, but so is the gloves. Because
that's the agility one?
No,
that's the might one.
It's the might one, which, you know, if you have your standard pod where you're going to have 3 to 4 brutes and almost all of them are going to be on KO, that's basically just a 2-block glove.
Right.
Almost all the time, or at least any of the time that it matters, right? So yeah, there's just, again, like lots of stuff I'm learning. And so as the more I play, I'm at the same place you are, is essentially what I was going to say, is that I don't think the equipment is like that high of a pick, and nobody else around me seemed to think the same thing.
Right. And then somehow the seedings and pairings in our pod got fucked up. So we were playing the person across from us while drafting. So the corners were playing people that they were passing to in round 1.
Our first pod in RTN was a little bit weird, just because we had uneven number of people. So we had the very first pod I was in was a 10-person pod as well. So that also kind of messes with things. But one of the other pods, one of the 8-man pods, had a situation where they had 2 people 2-0 that didn't play in round 3.
Oh, because it's 10 people.
No, this was one of the 8-man pods. Yeah, like they even went up and they were asking like if it could be changed in Gem or something, but that's how Gem paired it. There was 2 people.
That makes no sense.
That were because the whole pod talked it out. They're like, this should never happen. And then, just like you would imagine, what happened? The 2 O's both lost, and so we had one pod who had no undefeated person. Right. So then when we go to the pairings for the second pod, that one was also like really screwy. That's why I was sitting right next to the person.
The 3-0, right.
The 3-0. Yeah, everything was weird because of that. So I don't know what was up with Gem this week. Gem was drunk.
And so I wound, and then the pod 2, which was because the guy to my left and I met at the O2. And every one of my games came down to the last 2 cards of my deck are cracked baubles. Like, that's it. So, okay, I can't do anything about that at that point. You know, water in the bridge. I drafted the second. It was a 44-person draft RTN. So, drafted the second draft just to draft. Went 2-1 in that pot against, and then was a Casimir in the finals, which is exactly what we knew it was going to be. Like, because both of our decks were clean. He had the hood, I didn't. That made a big difference. Later in the match, when he was just able to crack hood and get value, and I couldn't do much about it. I think he also had there was something else he had that was spicy, but I can't remember what it was. But yeah, so he had full, and he also had full armor, and I didn't, but that's fine. And it was one of the Nebraska guys that I know pretty well, Trent, and tons of fun. Like, loved it. So I went to CC the next day, and of course I'm just playing Kasai. Why wouldn't I? Dagan was also playing Kasai, but our list's wildly different. And but we both had one thing in common. One very important thing in common. We both firmly believed that arcane damage is not real and cannot hurt us, and had AB 0.
Mm-hmm.
So I go in round 1 against Dash IO. Turns out items don't have a block value. Okay. Round 2 was an insane Bolton match, and end up winning by the skin of my teeth, because I actually my brain actually worked for a minute. And there was a turn where he attacked with a quick and tokened snatch. Like, okay. and I block it out with a 3 in Valiance, and he overs it with a Courageous Steel Hand. I'm like, okay. Comes in with, gives it going, has go again with the Quicken token. Comes in with Lumina. All right, gives it go again. He did something in charge. I blocked it. He then comes in with Lumina, block, or not Lumina, the sword. Raiden. And I'm like, okay, block that. He gives it go again, and I have 2 cards in hand, but they are not good. And I'm kind of in deep shit, and I'm at 4. And then he comes in with a Snatch as his last card. So no go again. I'm at 4. I have 1 block up on Grains, and I stop and think, and I'm like, how do I get out of this? Because I can full block the Snatch, but then he has a full grip coming back at me with like a card in Soul, and that's bad news bears. So I was like, okay, and he's very low. I think he's at 1. And I'm like, okay, need to get out of this. What do I do? Stop for a second. I'm like, I'm at 4. Block with Grains, take 3, go to 1, trigger his card draw, blow my Balance of Justice, draw a card, hope to hit the go again source, or a blue to crack this gold to find the go again source. Yes, perfect. No notes. Block, draw blue, crack gold, draw red Blade Runner. So my hand is now red Blade Runner, 1 resource floating, sink below. And so it's attack, has to block, Blade Runner it, has to block with 2 cards, Arsenal sink below. And then so he attacks, I block with a single card, and he then tries to come over it with a reaction, and I sink it, and now he's just like, fuck. And I'm like, okay, I think I can get there from here. It's 1-1. I think I'm in the driver's seat. And yep, wound up in a good spot there and ended up pulling that one out. Then I played Prism. It doesn't feel that hard. Just in this matchup, as long as you understand what you have to prevent from happening from the warrior side, it's not too bad. So I was able to win that one. And then here comes Chandler Toe 1 Rhinar. Okay. So Chandler's playing 2 Hold the Lines, which again into warrior is nuts. And I'm like, he deleted one of my turns with 1 card. Like, great. Got him to 1, but I'm also like having to go low. And he rolls Scab Skins to get a second attack and hits it 2 turns in a row. One of them eats my hand. The second one winds up getting enough of my hand with a Mandible Claw activation into No Mercy, the Rhinar spec, to then eat another 2 more cards in my hand or whatever it was to leave me with 1 card in hand, which was sink below, but that makes that into a 9.
Right.
And I can't block it. So I die. And I'm like, okay, X1, still fine. Won the first 3. Next round, still a winning in. Look at my pairing. It's Kano. I fucking died. Like, in record time.
Yeah.
I would attack, and then I would look at my opponent and go, am I dead? And he'd look at his cards and goes, not yet. I'm like, okay. He starts his turn. He Aether Spindles me, ops 5 cards. I'm like, that's probably bad. He's like, am I dead yet? And he's like, not quite. Draws his hand, passes. I attack again, knock him down to like 17. And then I go, am I dead yet? He's like, hold on. Plays something, or Kano does Kano. And I'm like, all right. He's like, maybe. Takes his turn and plays a Wildfire out of Arsenal with Stormstriders. And then plays that out of Arsenal. And then Stormstriders in the same turn after the Wildfire goes off to hit me with Aether Spindles and op 9. Looks at 9 cards and was like, oh, you're super dead. Like, great. Just kill me. And yeah, about 5 minutes, give or take. And then the last round was Azalea, which I won. That's a very tough matchup from the Warrior side, by the way. That is very difficult because Red in the Ledger is a card.
Yeah, I was just about to say, Red in the Ledger is a hell of a card, it turns out.
Yeah, your fridge is really good at making sure the first one doesn't kill you, doesn't hit. It's really hard to make the second one not hit, but it's doable. The third one is going to hit. And then so will the fourth and fifth. So there's not a whole lot you can do after that, but you just have to make sure that you time out like your warmongers or whatever, so that you can actually play the game. And then make sure that you're eating your attack action. So Codex of Frailty only gives you frailty and doesn't start eating your hand and putting shit in arsenal that you don't want there. But that's about it. That's the matchup. So managed to be 4-2, ended up missing breakers. It was a 50-person RTN. So my RTNs were 44 and 50. Dagan did make top 8, but lost to a Dromai that he beat earlier, because during the match with the Dromai he beat earlier, he showed the Dromai what they needed to do to win. And the Dromai player executed that game plan flawlessly. Dagan also, because he hadn't played the deck in paper, he was missing like the mechanical pieces quite a bit. So dynamo triggers, Kasai activations, shit like that. And that's rough. But yeah, it was, and there was ringers galore in these rooms. So you had the CCRTN in the top 8 was Chandler Toe, Dagan, Matt McInnes, Teeth of Bow. Who else was in there? I'm missing somebody. Ryan Mound, Bryce Storick. Like, these are all people that like are very, very good at this game. And they're all just, they're sitting in the top 8, and it's like, it's a ringer. It's just an absolute parade of ringers in the room. So I felt fine going 4-2 in that one. Winning the first 3 and then losing your 2, double win-ins hurts.
Yeah.
I win either one of those and I get in, or if my round 3 opponent who made the top 8 had picked up a second loss at any point, I'm pretty sure I get in, but he did not. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I feel fine. I thought my play was very clean. I didn't miss any dynamo triggers. I didn't miss any activations, which are all kind of the things that you're looking for. There might have been a couple of times that I should have activated like Iron Song Versus, but I really wanted to make sure that I was resource ready for Vigor tokens, because I tend to prioritize them more. They allow you to block a little bit cleaner. So things like that, also, like if you have a single Vigor token, you can just pitch a blue for cash in, and it's absolutely reasonable. So I felt good about that. I think I'm going to play another CC one on Saturday. And then we had, they're all in this area, like within like a 300-mile radius, they're all classic constructed, all the ones that are left. So
yeah, we only have CCs left, with the exception of like the final weekend. There's, I want to say it's on the west side of the state, maybe, or maybe it's the other way. But we have one draft left within 100 miles of me, basically.
Yeah. But what stood out to me in all of this, like there was one victor in the room that I know of, that was, kind of plotting going to time. Dash did really well in the room, which was interesting and surprising. No KOs at that 50 person did well, which, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Kano, again, people like me saying that arcane damage isn't real and can't hurt me. So
a lot of people seemed to follow that path, because LSS did post that thing about Kano had the most living legend points.
But Kano, there were 2 Kanos in the room. One of them finished 5-1. The other one finished 4-2. And the only reason the one of them finished 4-2 was because they played against a Prism, which, yeah. And then the Kanos were in a mirror. That's the reason.
Yeah.
And so it's like the 2 Kanos were just mopping up. The Kanos did not win it. Or the Kano didn't win it. The Dash won it. But yeah, it was the top 8 was the only hero that was duplicated in that top 8 was Dash. Otherwise, it was Rhinar, Dromai, Kasai, Prism, Kano. I'm missing one, but yeah. it was diverse, and the only heavy hitters hero that really stood out was Kasai. That was it. But Kasai really stood out. That's the takeaway there, and it's a hard deck to tech for unless you just play one of the decks that are just bad matchups.
All right, so I just updated my Arachne list, and I now have AB5. I'm all set.
Yeah, you're good now. Like, sure. You have decided that arcane damage is real and can hurt you.
I will go the other end of the spectrum, which is I dare a Kano to sit across from me.
How many blues do you have?
In the list currently 21.
Yeah, I think 21's 21 is probably fine.
It should be fine because specifically this play pattern with Arachne is
toxic.
Well, you're throwing, at least mine anyway, you're throwing a lot of those 0-for-4 contracts out as like the actual pressure. So between that and the banishes, that really speeds up their clock. And so you don't actually like need the blues. You can literally just, your entire turn is I throw 1 0-for-4 and then I just sit on, even if my hand is a blue and 2 reds, I can still AB5 it. You know what I mean? So,
right. I'm trying to see if my rating changes have gone through yet. They haven't. I'm going to get nuked by the draft one and then probably recover to plus on the weekend out of the CC one.
Yeah, my draft one's gonna hurt me. So,
I mean, I would have to go on a hell of a run and just barely miss a bunch of times for my elo to be high enough anyway. So it doesn't actually matter. But it was just one of those curiosities. Like, you look at it and you're like, okay, this person has a higher elo than me. This person has a higher elo than me. Actually, everybody on this list has a higher elo than me, except for maybe my last round opponent. Okay, whatever. But elo's an interesting spot now with qualifications and things like that. People are caring and then like being concerned with it. I know that there's two stances on it, really. There's either the ignore it and just play, or sit on it and just be qualified. We know what camp Brody Spurlock is in because he played in 2 fucking RTNs this weekend.
Right.
And didn't win either of them, if I remember correctly. Actually, he might have won the first one, but he did not win the classic constructed one. That was won by our friend Mo Bogsley. That was Mark Johnson on Levia winning that one. That dude is also just a sicko. He tends to just kind of roll up with very little preparation and just win. So sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, what stood out to me in draft is Guardian feels a little like a trap at times. Warrior seems to have the highest floor, but the lowest ceiling. Like you can probably, I thought it would be KO, and I don't think it is. I think it's actually Warrior. And then the deck that feels the most objectively powerful, if you get the cards for it, is actually Rhinar.
Yeah, if that's why that first one I was trying, when I saw enough natural 6s, I was like, all right, I want to try to make this work, because if you can get the stuff, I mean, we already know Rhinar is a beast in Blitz, and so if you can even come close to mimicking that in a limited environment, you're going to beat people in the face,
Yeah. And then in CC, nothing has changed. Consistency is key. And the Kasai decks are ultra consistent. The Dromai decks are ultra consistent. The Dash decks are ultra consistent.
Yep.
And that's what I saw sitting at the top. And then the Kano decks were just feasting on people that left their AB at home. So that made sense. And then again, Rhinar, same shit. You could just get high roll by a Rhinar. It's, I don't know. Like, I feel like the way this is shaking up is you just want your deck to be able to do the damn thing on schedule all the time.
Yep.
And there are certain decks that do that, and you can build almost any one of these decks. I would probably say not Dromai, but I guess not Dromai, not Dash. But the rest of these decks you can kind of just start tinkering with and build them to your play style. Like Dagan and I, again, both play Kasai. outside of like the core cards that every Kasai deck is going to play, that's where the deck similarities really ended. We were playing completely different styles and completely different plans. He was playing Guardian.
Yep.
Just with warrior cards. And I was playing not Guardian. I was playing warrior. But both are legit strategies. So I think it's interesting. I think it's fascinating. I do love that even people try to prepare or tech their decks for Kasai. There really isn't much you can do outside of potentially hold the lines, but hold the line is kind of bad across the board elsewhere. So it's like card good here, card not great everywhere else. So is it worth playing like a full suite of them? Is it just one? Do you play two? Like there's a lot of is there room in these decks? But we'll see. Any other notes for that?
No, I mean, I think that about covers it. I'll have more to report after I've been to a couple of my CC ones, obviously. I have to make the decision, right? Like I could play Bravo, which is fine, and I'm very comfortable with the deck. I just really wanted to play one of the assassins. Obviously I think Uzuri is better positioned right now than Arachne, but man, after finally getting like some decent support in coercive tendency, I just really was hoping to break him out this season for some fun, but
still can. No one's saying you can't.
I mean, my desire to play at Nats is saying I can't.
That's fair.
That's the problem.
All right, that's fine. We did get our March Armory kit. It's kind of what everybody thought it would be. Cold foil Knucklehead, cold foil Golden Glare. I was surprised and happy to see that the rainbow foils were Smashback Alehorn, Pine of Strongest Out, and Goblet of Blood Run Wine, because those are at least somewhat playable, which is nice. So were the block cards from the February fucking words Armory kit. So I like that they're doing that a little bit better. They're giving us a little bit more of things that are worth having. So that's nice. And then it's the most fucking disgusting playmat you've ever seen in your life. There's just this piece of shit, and Victor the horse. So if no one should want those. They're awful. Do not like. But yeah, like I said, I would like them to sort of continue the Armory, like the Armory promos in that direction. Like you kind of got to start incentivizing a little bit more on Armory, since like XP doesn't do much right now. To get people to come out and support. I think that's very important right now. But
yeah, I think that's fair.
That's all I have for that. And but that, like one of the things I thought was interesting this weekend was, and my wallet cried, was that Centauri sabers were open in gold foil, both orientations.
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't see the both orientations bit. Yeah,
both orientations.
That changes a wee bit.
Sure does. And I'm not allowed to purchase gold foils until I win one. Right.
Yeah.
That hurts. But that's okay. I'll be fine. I'm not crying, you're crying.
I am in fact crying, yeah.
You do that differently than others. Your face just looks the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. We did get some Nationals updates, and I thought that this was a pretty interesting little blurb, and it's in true LSS fashion. They just kind of attached it to one of their previous posts.
Right.
And that didn't print like an article on their front page or anything to call out the changes or the differences. It's kind of like, fuck it, here you go. And it's like, these are relevant, this is actual information that we could use. So, but that's what we have a podcast for, is to inform all of you, so you don't have to suffer through digging through the news. So the nationals, the national championships in the different countries will be have national festivals attached to them, which is very cool. They basically are what they are is that for the side events at the national festivals, which include the calling, well, not including the calling, but for the national festival itself, we'll have exclusive promos that are on a strict allocation just for these events. And I think that that's really cool. And I think that's really like an interesting little thing they're going to do to kind of like make sure you're driving attendance to the variety of different national events out there. Because I think just the US one has a calling attached to it. But really making sure that I think a lot of things that are helpful here is just making sure that you have eyeballs on these bigger events that people wouldn't necessarily go to anyway. And so somebody walking in the door of a national championship that isn't qualified for one, but having events to play and then seeing the national championship going on might incentivize them to like, oh, I want to play in the national championship next year, and then work a little bit harder or play a little bit more or do whatever to get to that point. And I think that this is a good step. Like, this is just a really good idea on their part to make these a little bit different, a little bit more special. We don't know what the promo is yet. You can about guarantee it's going to be sweet, but we don't know that part yet. You look like you want to say something, Poochie. Do you?
I'm sure it'll be a Guardian card or something.
Why? Because you're not going to be at Nationals? I mean, like...
Well, it's just, like I said, I'm convinced that all of the or it'll be Guardian or Assassin or something I can play in those decks, right? So like if it's a generic, it'll be a Fate or a Sync or a Ravenous Rabble or a Sigil or basically
they've done all those.
Right, I know, but my point is they keep killing my wallet with all the stuff that you know.
You don't have to buy those. You can have a Fate for scene for 75 cents.
Yeah.
Ravenous Rabbles are like a nickel.
Yeah.
But there are all these ultra pretty ones, but
right.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I have them.
Done by like Iswardi.
Right. And I own them. They're very pretty.
Right.
But yeah, it'll probably be something really good like that. That's my guess. So think of whatever. What's a common that people that's playable that people do a lot that has Snatch. Could do promo snatches. Done. Card gets played a ton.
Snatch would be a good one.
Yeah, I like that.
Could
do promo
like,
snatch.
What? I was trying to think some of the newer ones, like maybe like Premeditate.
Yeah, I mean that's a little more narrow. It doesn't go into as many decks.
So far.
Well, yeah, sure.
Could be like Scar for Scar, even though like
Scar for Scar has been done.
Yeah, I know that's been done technically, but not with like imagine a heavy hitters themed. So when I say that, I mean like something from the arena, Scar for Scar. Right. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, even something like Raging Onslaught would be doable. I mean, it's played in some decks. If they end up doing like on a Lightning Strike or something, that would be like absolutely ballistically bonkers, and people would be tripping over each other to get to them. So I don't think it'll be that. But you never know. Like I said, they could do virtually anything, and it'd be really, really good. But we'll see. One of the things that I saw that I usually wouldn't like calling this type of stuff out is not for most of our audience, but the Philippines had their player cap increased to 96 players to make it an invitational event because just of the growth of the game in the Philippines.
Yeah.
And that's incredible. Like when LSS has to like pull out and say, woo, okay, we need to increase our cap because we're getting the turnouts are super high and 64 is not enough. Like we'd be turning people away at the door. Like that's great. To be forward thinking like that and getting and making sure that people that are like people can play, that are representing your growth markets. But the fact that it's that big of a growth market,
Right.
that's also just really worth noting. So, and also if we have any listeners in the Philippines, the cap increased. You need an invite now. Just putting that out there. And if I remember right, we actually do have listeners in the Philippines. So, yes, cap increased, but you can't just show up and play now. You've been warned. Also buried in this article, they have a World Championship Team Cup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Such a good idea. I
wish we would have thought of it.
I wish somebody would have mentioned it, like a while ago.
Fucking savages.
Sort of thing I could get behind. That's all I'm saying.
What I'm saying is that we've talked about this for a while now. What? And here it is. Listen, at this point in time, LSS has to listen to this show.
No.
Because it happens like clockwork that we bring something up and then very soon after we see it happen. So either they listen to this show or we're smarter than we think we are. And I know I'm a dumb fuck.
Yeah, I don't think it's that second one. So
no, absolutely not. It's got to be the first one. And I would like the credit that we're due, but we're never going to get it, and that's fine. But this is really sweet. And I am also super happy they're doing it, because this is the type of thing that was the most fun in Magic, honestly. And adapting it here and making it part of the Flesh and Blood like DNA is exactly what you want it to be. I am interested in what the qualifiers look like. I would love them to be WMCQ style, where similar to Road to Nats, there are qualifiers that are just bigger and regional. Or if there's qualifiers at Nats, that would also be interesting. But that would be really hard with nationals going on at the same time. But obviously the national champion would be part of the team anyway. Right. So, I mean, push and pull. But I am interested in how they do qualifications. I think this will be fascinating. And I can't wait to kind of dive into it. Also in there, they have rebranded PTI events. They're now called ProQuest Plus. And they will, instead of being just the only prize support being from LSS, being the gold foil, now they have the standard ProQuest pricing. So you'll have playmats and promos to the top 8 and stuff like that. So They've increased that a little bit. They have made them rated events now where they weren't before, which was always mind-boggling. Like anything that you would think could have an invite involved would have rating involved, but it didn't. So you could play in a PTI event and wasn't rated. But now ProQuest Plus will be rated. So there will be ELO on the line for those events, which is probably, again, I feel like to a degree for these types of qualifying events, they're trying to push people who are already qualified towards not entering as much so that other people can actually get a shot at it.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
But again, by putting different stakes on it, and that might not be it at all. I don't know. To me, the gamers are going to game and they're not going to give a shit at all. And they're just going to go out there and play. You're not going to tell Brody Spurlock, hey, you probably shouldn't do this. There's ELO on the line. He's just going to go, oh, but there's also gold foils. Why wouldn't I go play?
Right.
Also, I get to play. Why wouldn't I go play? Like, you're not going to stop the people who are truly grinders of this game from grinding. Gamer's going to game. Grinder's going to grind. So that doesn't change this at all. But there's a subset who will want to protect that number. And I think that's reasonable. With that, they also did a Living Legend points update. So Nationals, with a 96 player cap, will be worth 40 LL points, and Pro Quest pluses and smaller Nationals will be 20 points. So a little bit of an update to usher in some new eras at times with these bigger events, but they're not calling style bombs or, world championship bombs worth of points. Anything else from that little update that you wanted to talk about?
Not from the update specifically, I don't think. I would at this point in time, though, just like to publicly say, since we know that they're listening and they're going to make events and whatever, right? That we know there are massive wrestling fans on the staff over there at LSS, and we know that we have routinely talked about doing some sort of wrestling themed event with entrance music and cutting promos and whatever. So
for years at this point.
For years. So I'm just saying, if you're looking for something to tick off our list next, that's the one that I want. Yeah.
That's the one. Yeah.
That's the one that I want.
I want to cut promos. I want heel turns. I want it all.
If we can have chess boxing, we can have fab wrestling.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it'd be fun to teach like some of these people how to do a back bump so they don't get injured.
I just want to see Brody frog splash somebody through a table. I feel like him slapping on the goggles on the top rope before going into like an Eddie Guerrero frog splash would be just everything.
That would be pretty spectacular. I would enjoy that a lot.
So yeah, that's what I have to say. The actual content, one, happy for the Philippines. I love seeing the growth. Everything that it's so funny because everything that we've been seeing, whether it's the really cool TV spot that was done from the local New Zealand station to obviously this update, etc., it seems to report that the game is doing well. It's growing, right? And that's just funny to me because, routinely, especially when we hit those December, January months, there's people that are like, oh, the game is dying and it's over. And it's like, no, it's not been the case. So, you like to see that stuff. So happy for them. But yeah, I just want my wrestling event. So
yeah, I want to get in the ring. Let's do this. We're going to do a what do we got here? 4-pack of listener questions. Sounds great. First one's from Clark J. Clark, good, big, friend of the family over here. He says, ahem, do you have opinions on the ELO update? LOL. Okay. I'm pretty sure he's in reference to the combined ELO update, which saw some tanks happen.
Yeah.
He was making the comment that his ELO is too higher than Michael Feng's, which, if I remember correctly, Michael Feng is historically not the best limited player. And yeah, when you combine ELO and you're really good in one half and not really great in the other half, your ELO is going to shrink. That's going to happen.
I think that's how that works. Yeah.
Yeah. And so opinions, I'm used to ELO being separate and combined both, because back when ELO was a thing playing Magic, it was limited, constructed, and cumulative. And so you would take your top cumulative, and then you would take your top limited, and you would take your top constructed, from anything that was left over. And that would build that player pool. But it turning into one giant pool, I just think I'm fine with it. I don't give a shit. I think that it's cleaner, if nothing else. That playing an event has ELO on the line and ELO is ELO. That's it. Pretty easy to follow at that point. They also addressed the playing and the decay. If your ELO is 1500 and you have 0 games played, you basically don't have elo. They don't treat that as a number. And if you haven't had an elo change in X number of days, then you don't qualify. So you can't just sit on your rating in perpetuity. It doesn't work.
Right.
Most games, chess included, have just a decay system. So if you don't play, it just on a routine basis trickles down in value. But here, just by basically saying, okay, if you haven't had a change in your elo in X number of days, then we don't consider you a player anymore, I think is also a pretty elegant solution. If they don't want to do decay, which, okay. Well, that's really all I got for that one. Hopefully that answers the question.
My opinion is this. What's elo? Because I don't play well enough where it matters to me. It might as well be Puff the Magic Dragon.
I mean, it kind of is. Well,
so
Puff the Magic Dragon was Peter, Paul, and Mary, not Electric Light Orchestra. So this is closer to Mr. Blue Skies.
Yeah.
Which is Electric Light Orchestra. ELO. You seem disappointed.
Yeah.
Were you?
No. I mean, more than anything, I'm just disappointed in myself, I think.
But that's like a perpetual state for you.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
So, like, ain't shit changed is basically what you're saying?
Pretty much, yeah.
All right, fair enough. Next one is from Pox on Us, valued member of the Patreon. Thank you. If game show question. Charmer is host of a fab-centric game show. What's the theme and who are the first 3 contestants? Go.
Well, first of all, how do you know that there's going to be 3 contestants? What if there are more, right?
Or
like
less.
this could be, like Let's Make a Deal where I have an entire crowd full of cosplayers for Flesh and Blood, and then you get to call them down, and then you do like the host is somebody dressed up like Genus What You Need, and then you have to do the Let's Make a Deal with trinkets and stuff. And then it's, you open the trinket and it's either like a gold foil or a cracked bauble or whatever, right? Like you could do something, I think, legitimately real and fun like that at an event. But if we're just like, if we're just making stuff up, then it's got to be the Wraith version of Fear Factor. That's what it's got to be. And my first 3 contestants are Matt DeMarco, Elaine Hammondtree, and Tommy Fresh. Because I cannot think of a better 3 contestants than those 3 for a welcome to Wraith, but instead it's welcome to Fear Factor of Wraith.
I think Tommy wins in a walk.
Well, the man likes blue cheese, so
I mean, he loves blue cheese.
But Elaine, I have.
She's a dark horse in this because she makes questionable life decisions.
I don't think she's a dark horse. I think she would be the favorite because
we know DeMarco's in last.
I have seen some of the pickle items that she has posted, but even further, there's her whole like, sometimes I eat birds, sometimes I don't. What's the like? She'll put stuff in her mouth that was from complete strangers. You know what I mean? So
she recently commented about how she went to hold her sister's hand and wound up holding a random stranger's hand on the subway in New York.
And
okay.
Like all I'm saying is there are murder basement stories and sugar shack stories. And I think she is the favorite.
When we were talking, I remember, and she went, well, the first time that I was kidnapped, and I almost killed Charmer, but I had the...
I'm in danger!
Yeah. And I had to stop and go, hold the fuck on. The first time? That means there are...
Yeah, I mean...
more times than the first time. Having a strong
I really do love her so much.
Yeah,
like she gives me anxiety.
Having a strong familial attachment to that girl is absolutely horrifying every fucking time. It's like, man, I'm gonna outlive you. I'm not gonna outlive you, but you're making the odds like shift a lot on a daily basis. But yes, I think that I would love the fear factor. I do think in that suite of players that DeMarco is the clear underdog. Not saying that Matt hasn't gone through some shit and can nut up when need be, but he's going against two real ringers when it comes to, don't care. So, okay. I could do that. I also kind of just want to do the let's make a deal thing. Like somewhere like maybe like at a summer camp with Fab players or
it just sounds really fun, right?
Yeah, there are these Realm events that this sounds like exactly something that the Realm would do. Is just have a let's make the deal happen or let's make a deal happen and do it. That, people come up and it's like, okay, you have this gold foil, unopened gold foil, or you have what's behind door number 2. And just do it. See what happens. Could be anything. Could be a boat. Or would you like the box? Would you like the box? I think that's fantastic. Next question is one that they put in our Discord, so I'm going to put out there. This is from Red Sand, so new question asker to the show. Hello. Hi. Since you were in an FFG event 2 weeks ago, did you hear anything about a possible return from Netrunner, or is that forever closed door for FFG?
I don't know that I would ever use the words forever, but it does not appear to be on their radar right now. And the impression that I got from them, my understanding, is that they are like 100% committed and full bore on Star Wars Unlimited. That's not to say, obviously, they're not going to do other games. They still do board games. They've got some of their other card games or whatever. But like all of the people that I talked to, everyone I talked to that was not just on the Unlimited team, but were from like FFG Greater, like even those people were like, I don't even normally like card games, but we've all been playing Star Wars Unlimited. That just seems to be their focus. So yeah, if it is on their radar, it's probably many years out would be my guess, because it looks like they really are invested in this. And kudos to them, because obviously that's been a knock on them in the past, is that, they've made great games and then they didn't support them. And it looks like that, they're out to change that now with this one. So
yeah. And that's obviously a very good thing. They needed to do that. And I think that FFG I think FFG's self-awareness in this is very important, because they're aware of what the perception is in public of what they do to games, specifically competitive games. And they have done a really good job to assuage fear in this, but it's still a hell of a hill for them to climb.
Yes.
They are definitely not out of the woods with it. I think it's very interesting. So our good friend Jordan, a former host of this show, just published one of his possum papers, which is just a thing that he does not do on any sort of regular basis. But when he does write, he's an incredibly talented writer and has a lot of really good thoughts. He just published one basically exploring the question, is Star Wars Unlimited a Lorcana killer? And there are compelling arguments. Lorcana doesn't look like it's in a great spot. It's
I don't know that it's a killer. I would say this. I think that there is definitely going to be room for Star Wars Unlimited to steal some of that market share, just because you have a lot of that initial excitement and hype that has died down. You're still going to have the people that are playing Lorcana because they love the Disney stuff. You're going to have the people that are just, for right or wrong, invested in that now. Like, we know that sunk cost fallacy is a thing. But that being said, like, Star Wars Unlimited is just a really fun game to play, and it's different enough that I think it will scratch an itch that some people are missing. And I know that Lorcana has now shifted, and they say like they've got more organized play stuff coming, because I do try to keep an eye on that and keep track of it. But I think that it is a fair criticism to say that at best they have been shaky in their organized play commitments, whereas Star Wars Unlimited has said from the forefront that like they have an organized play plan. They've already got their multiple sized tier events in mind. They've got somebody on staff who is hired entirely for that. So like, to give you an idea, right, when I was at Gen Con, and I talked to the Lorcana staff, and I was like, hey, who do I have to talk to like learn more about organized play? They sent me to their marketing person, and he handed me a business card and shooed me away, and that was it. And then when I talked to Star Wars Unlimited and I said, hey, what do you guys have going for organized play? They were like, here's Josh Massey, our head of organized play, and he will answer whatever questions he can. Now, obviously, some stuff he couldn't cover at that time, but just sure. And then gave me a big old chat, right? So if you are the kind of person who is looking for more of those events, I think Star Wars Unlimited would be up your alley. I think that that's the market share it will steal. Right now, the best Lorcana events are all community ones, right? They're local stores, 1Ks and 5Ks and whatever, but it's not going to be the same. So yeah, I don't know that anything. I hate the term killer for anything anyway, because I've never, ever heard anything described as an X killer ahead of time and then have that be the truth.
Sure.
Just ever. Right? It's always the next Magic killer, Hearthstone killer, Pokemon killer, everything in video games, same way. The next WoW killer, the next whatever. That just doesn't happen. But I do think that there will be some loss of market share, and I do think that Unlimited will find a way to be successful alongside of Lorcana. If anything, the thing that I would be the most concerned about as a potential player of both is that ultimately their parent company for both of their intellectual properties are shared. And if there's too much stepping on the toes, I would be more concerned about like a corporate Disney thing killing one or the other than I would any of the player base, right, or company stuff. Right. Because that is something that I could very well see when you get soulless executives involved.
Well, that's, I mean, yeah, the American experience in a nutshell. But yeah, and I think that Lorcana is currently being seen as a hype product. And now that the hype has died down, the interest is dying with it. And that's because they haven't done anything to push the game forward outside of just release sets. That,
right.
I mean, that's it. So, and from what I hear from players, you know, they talk about the new cards or the new sets or the new whatevers. It really seems like it's a powering up and invalidation of the things before it, just on a continual scale. And that's not healthy. So it's like, what's going to happen here? Like we're trying to do locations, and we're making all of these big leaps, and it feels just like the design space is shrinking rapidly. And if that happens, what do you do then? Do you just say, okay, here are the sets, until we figure our life out, we're just going to keep reprinting all of these, in which case collectability dies. And what's the point for people to kind of keep chasing product?
Right.
Like right now, you can walk into, 4 months ago, you couldn't walk into a Target and just buy Lorcana. Wasn't doable. Now you can walk into you can walk into a Target or a Walmart or an LGS, and Lorcana's just on the shelf. You just buy it. And that's it. And the other part of this equation is they have a higher MSRP than every other game. So by just that metric, it's more difficult to get into it. Like the dollar barrier of entry is higher. So what does this all end up meaning in the long run? I mean, if there are other games and there are other options out there with as strong intellectual property behind it, a lot of people might jump ship, and a lot more than just the competitive players. So while I agree with you, I've never seen a quote unquote killer ever kill anything. But every time that's brought up, it's a really established thing that is trying to get killed. And here, no, Lorcana's not a really established thing. But the handling of Lorcana is problematic at best. So I guess we'll see. But I have it's weird for me to have faith in something that Fantasy Flight is doing.
Yeah.
But I do. I have a lot of faith in Star Wars Unlimited. It's a great game. The only thing I don't like about Star Wars Unlimited is I don't love the art style. That's it. It works on some cards. It doesn't work on all the cards. But that's really the only criticism, and I can get past that. So, okay. Like, why wouldn't I just go do that? That's the answer.
Yeah. And that's fair.
Moving on from this completely unrelated discussion to Netrunner. Last question is from Zaris. Obviously, nothing replaces playing games, but do you find studying games on YouTube helps you develop as a player? I ask after watching Yuki versus Brody at the Realm Rumble and learning some new tricks for playing Azalea.
I do, but I think that I want to provide a word of caution here as well. So my mental understanding, I think, is very much improved when I watch other players, but that's also because I have a lot of years of like doing it for coverage. Whether I'm learning a new game or whether I'm preparing to, cover a game, but I'm unsure of matchups or whatever. From that standpoint, in terms of looking for like what a player is looking for and understanding how a player might navigate a matchup and things like that, yes, I think there's absolutely a ton of information that can be learned. But that being said, there is still something that is like, and I don't even know how to describe it. There's just something that's like missing for me personally when I'm trying to learn, whether it's a new deck or a new playstyle or whatever, if I don't go through the motions. And I mean with physical cards. Talishar doesn't get it done for me either.
Absolutely not.
There is something about getting into your mechanical habits. And you said it earlier with Dagon, right? Like it happens sometimes when you pick up something new and you miss a bunch of the mechanics, and it's because there's not an interface reminding you, or you don't have a friend reminding you, or you can't pause or go back, or even if you're not pausing, if you're watching a video and you're like, oh yeah, she did X, Y, and Z because she's Yuki and she's put in 1,000 games on that hero or whatever, right? But then when you go to do it, you might forget. And then afterwards you'll be like, oh yeah, I was supposed to do that. But it's setting up your own piloting is something that requires reps, right? And it sounds silly, and obviously it's not this drastic, but that's the analogy I would use, is like, I can watch videos about how to fly a plane, but that's not the same as flying a plane. You've got to get in the cockpit and do the piloting, right? It's the same thing. So yeah, you can learn a lot, but then even if it's something as little as like going, putting the deck on the table with you at home and going through the motions there, like just get in the habit of like physically going through the hands and the turns. That there's just something there, and that's the best advice I can give. Watch stuff, but then also go through the motions.
So personally for me, I don't learn a lot. The way I learn from things like YouTube or watching replays of games usually is, one, I need to not know the outcomes and basically pause the video at interaction points where I can see the hand. Like Fab doesn't have good hand viewers, so picking up the cards in the player's hands is really difficult. But once I do, before anything's been done, I pause and say, okay, what would I do? What would I do here? And then I kind of go over it in my brain or whatever, usually for me out loud because I don't have an inner monologue. I'll go over what I think the right play is, and then I'll play and see what the play they make is. And if it's the same, if it's different, why I think they did it differently. And, I will also do that in games that I watch live. I'll watch other people play, like during a round. My rounds usually end fast because I don't play anything fucking slow. And I'll go watch a game, and then after the game, be like, hey, can I ask a question? Why did you, in this situation, why did you do this instead of this? Because it's not that I think that I have a better solution. It's that I don't understand the nuance of why that was better. And sometimes it's as simple as, it's mathematical incremental percentages. This is slightly better, so you should just do this because it's in a vacuum slightly better. Fantastic. Okay, that's what I need to know because I don't. But that's the ways that they're helpful for me. But just watching and picking up, little tricks, I can't re-execute like in the same vein that they're going to execute those things. Like it won't stick. So I have to like be in the position, talk through, even with myself, what I would do, and then see if it's reinforced or if I need to like adapt my thinking because obviously there was something deficient in my thought process, and maybe it's an understanding of a card interaction. Maybe it's a misunderstanding of value proposition. There's a lot of different things in there. Or maybe I'm not thinking about playing around something. There's just a ton of little things like that. And then seeing the outcomes, be like, oh, okay, now that makes sense. Hope that helped. But we need hand viewers. We need hand cameras in Fab, like really bad. That'd make coverage so much better. But
yeah, I mean, Mansant, to his credit, definitely does his best to try to get us like player and hand and whatever, but it's
really hard to do.
I mean, if I had my way, it would be almost like a World Series of Poker style setup where you've got like the Arsenal cam and
which they have in Pokemon for prize cards.
Right.
Which I didn't know until a couple of days ago when somebody brought up, it'd be nice to tell there's a camera that showed Arsenal. It's like, yeah, but does anybody do that? And somebody's like, yeah, they do it in Pokemon. I'm like, oh shit. And so I went back and looked at some Pokemon coverage. I'm like, yeah, they absolutely have a camera that is looking at the prize cards that are face down in the zones on the table.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So it's doable. It's just investment of equipment and time and who's going to cart these fucking tables around. And the Pokemon company has a shit ton of money. So they could just, throw them away after every event for all they fucking care. Maybe that's it. Maybe we just go dumpster diving after Pokemon events.
Maybe.
Yeah, it might be a good idea. Well, I think I'm ready to get out of here. I got to edit this and post it so I don't get where episoded to death, which has already fucking started, even though it's not
It has already started, yeah.
Fucking vultures. But let's thank some patrons, shall we? We have our associate producers, Alex, Andy, C-Dubs, Sindra, Donnie K, Jacob, Kenny, Larry, and the Salty Sea Cat. Our executive producers on up, we have valued member of the Patreon, Blazestorm, the complaints department, Dom, Lance Goodthrust, Matt Two Tokes, Pox on Us, Papa Mike, Philip, Rich, Taylor, and Trevor. If you are interested in becoming a member of the Patreon, you go to patreon.com/fleshandpod. Link is in the show notes. There are 6 tiers to choose from. Any paid tier gets you to the FAP After Dark live shows, which are done about monthly. We should have one coming up here in the next week or two, where we just kind of vibe and talk about whatever is top of mind with you, the listener, as it were. If you have anything for the podcast, any questions, concerns, comments, you can email us at fleshandpod@gmail.com. You can hit us up on Twitter at fleshpod. Best thing to do is to come into the Discord, and that link is in the show notes. It's free to join. You don't have to be a member of the Patreon. You can just come on in and vibe. I will say that any and all complaints in writing that are submitted will go to Flesh and Pod Legal, which is a subsidiary of Black Hole Legal, which is still the trash can next to Jordan Kennedy's desk. Any complaints that are entered in Discord will go through the complaints department, who is Dom, and will ignore any and all complaints. So complain at your own risk. Charmer, where can they find you?
Best place is the Discord. You can just ping me there, or on Twitter at that Charmer, Charm 3R, because I'm a little edgelord. And yeah, Twitch, YouTube. You can skywrite me, send me smoke signals.
You
send
are
me
like
Morse code.
Okay, so a couple of things. One, you very much so looked like a Hot Topic kid with your frosted fucking hair back in like 2002 or whatever.
Yeah.
So I get the edgelord bit from there.
Mm-hmm.
But were you Charmer back then?
No.
So like ever since I've known you,
8 to 10 years. I'd have to go back and look, but like roughly in that time was when I had made the move, because I had a different gamer tag, but it was like when I was playing a ton of League of Legends, and then I changed my League of Legends name, my summoner name. I changed it to Charmer because I was playing Ari as my main.
Okay.
And her like, she has a bunch of abilities, but her big thing is she has one called Charm, and if she hits you with it, then you like are stuck in a trance walking toward her, and then she blows you up, right? So like I was like, all right, I'm gonna insta-lock Ari and be that toxic mid laner that feeds all game, but whatever.
Were you like before that just like Leet Dragon Fucker for 2069? And
no, I was going usually it was some combination of stuff from my World of Warcraft characters or my D&D characters. So like I had a Lotho.
So Extends?
Well, no, I never went by Extends.
Extends the male enhancement
shaman. Yeah. No, like my first World of Warcraft character was actually named after a D&D villain. So I had a D&D campaign where we had this stupid gnome mage that kept showing up and messing with people, and his name was Lotho. So when I made my first character in World of Warcraft, I was playing a frost mage, and I was like, well, I'm going to be annoying as shit. So naturally, this is going to be a gnome named Lotho. And so like I used that for a bit, and Gilninth for a bit, because that's an anagram of lightning. That was what Extends was changed into when I got forced to do the name change, actually, because
still
he
the
was
best fucking name.
A chain lightning shaman. But
sure, but Extends the male enhancement shaman is so good though. Okay, well, 116. You've been on board for over half of them now, so you are you're tenured. That's a thing. I don't know what it gets you, but it's a thing.
I don't know what it gets me either, but
we'll be back with the tenured professor here next week. But until then, everybody, bye.